Hello and welcome to the Confidence Corner, second episode. And tonight we're going to talk about how to build trust quickly with 3 specific steps. And so happy for all of you that are here, and I look forward to talking about this. And please ask any questions or share your own experience, because that's really what makes this so fun, to be able to address really specific scenarios. So, hello everybody, so good to see you all. So I'm just gonna roll with it, and I know we've got people coming in, so again, please feel free to ask questions, jump in the chat, throw any thoughts or ideas that you have would be great. But I wanna start with a story that relates directly to building trust quickly, and I would ask you first to think about yourself. And we don't often think about how we come across. That is not something that most of us spend a whole lot of time thinking about. And yet we always come across in a certain way. The question is it something that is a good thing? Is it something where people feel drawn toward us, drawn away from us, or is it just sort of a kind of neutral experience? And the story that I remember so vividly in my career is many years ago when I was doing a communication training. This was back when I was working for the amazing company called Decker Communications. And the guy walks in, just like 12 other people that walked in that class that day. I shook his hand, and I will say it was so interesting because my immediate thought was, oh, this guy's unapproachable. And he had this frown on his face. He just didn't come across as friendly. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to be with this guy all day. And as the day progressed, I realized this guy was really nice, really fun. He was funny, he was engaged, and I thought, this is not at all the experience that I felt from this guy when I met him the first time. And in that particular case, we recorded people. That's what I did in that particular class or that program. And so I recorded him. Everybody did about a minute intro. We recorded it, and then each person got to watch it back with me. And one of the things that was his most insightful moment was we're sitting there in front of the computer. I put the SD card in to watch it. And afterward, I said, well, what did you think? Like, when I record people, I always ask, okay, what did you like and what would you change? And he immediately went to what he didn't like, and he goes, oh my gosh, I look so rude and intimidating, and I kind of look mean. And I said, I know, that's exactly what I thought when I met you. And he said, what? Now keep in mind, I would not have said that to him if he hadn't seen it himself, if he hadn't seen that in the video. Yet that was such a powerful moment for him, because he goes, but that's not how I am. And I said, I know. That hasn't been my experience of you except for that first impression moment. And suddenly he had this light bulb go off, and he goes, well, I don't want my team to think that I'm rude and intimidating. I want them to be happy, and I want them to know that I'm for them, all the things that we want, of course, as a leader. And it was so great because he had this transformation, and he goes, okay, the number one thing I need to work on is to lighten up my facial expression. And so that leads me to these 3 specific tips on how to build trust quickly. And it was so powerful. And here's the thing. I got to tell another story real quick and I'll get back to the tangible here, because he was talking about this, or he came across as unapproachable. And if we're talking about building trust quickly, we've got to make sure that we come across as inviting and approachable and friendly and all the things, because let's face it, we want to be likable. You want to be likable. You might actually be likable, but let me clarify, you want to come across as likable. And there's a difference, because clearly that is not how he came across in that immediate moment that I met him. So the other story I want to share is when I was doing some research with my last company, and we found that there were a lot of executive leaders that we wanted to talk to and focus on and ask questions to. And one executive vice president at Visa, we actually asked her, how would you define executive presence? And she goes, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. And I remember thinking that was the most unhelpful answer I could imagine getting, because how can you possibly replicate that? You can't. If you don't know what to do differently, you can't possibly replicate it. And so I am in the business of making sure that we can replicate these things. So I always want to make sure that I tie a behavior, like an actual thing you can do, with a tangible, a behavior that's tangible with the actual thing that it does. So for example, building trust. There's a few different ways that you can build trust, but one of those that we can all start with is remembering to have a lightness to our expression. It does not mean that you have to be smiling from ear to ear all the time, because at that point, people would probably think that you're nuts. You don't want to do that, but you want to have an expression. And what I have found is that when people are thinking about content or they're nervous, they get this furrowed brow. They get really serious when they're trying to present at a meeting or simply have a difficult conversation. So you have to remember, and I know this is a lot to think about because most of us are just thinking about, what am I going to say? We don't often think about how we're going to say it and how we want to come across. So number one thing I would say, remember to have that smile so that you can show connection, because connection is a fabulous way to build trust. And, I noticed that somebody was wanting to come into the video. And if you still want to do that, I would love to have you. So I'm actually going to see if you want to come in. Actually, let me give you a minute. Okay, it looks like 2 people, Andrea and Jeannie. I'm not sure if you meant to do that. So I'm going to ask you to put an emoji or something in the chat if you would like to join. And welcome to the rest. I just want to acknowledge everybody for coming, and thank you for coming. So number 1, how do you build trust? Smile, which connects, frankly, it connects to connection and likability. The second one, let's see, what did I say? There's lots of ways we can do this. The second one is having eye contact. And even on a live like this or on Zoom, the hardest thing for me still is to look at the green dot. But that is where your experience is going to be optimized, because if I am looking at myself or even down like, ooh, here's who's here, I'm so excited to see everybody, then I'm not going to connect. But you can notice the difference when I immediately look up at technically the webcam. You're going to feel a much better connection with me. And if you think about this on virtual meetings, especially with them being so prominent, we have to make sure that we are looking at the green dot. Now, I will say that you can cheat a little bit if you look just a half an inch below the green dot, especially if, and there's different webcams and all of that, but test it out and see where is the optimal place for you to look so that the person on the other side feels like you're looking at them, not like you're going, oh, how's my hair today? And it's so much easier to look at ourselves where we are placed, but we've got to make sure that we're looking up, because you're going to not only build that trust through connection, but you're going to come across as more confident. You're also going to come across as, frankly, less nervous, not that you even were in the first place, but you're going to come across with a lot more power and strength when you're able to look the webcam in the eye, because that's how people are going to feel you looking at them. Now, an interesting fun fact, if you look at the research around this, and I worked for a company for almost, 14 years, where we specialized in communication and how people come across. And if you're just chatting with somebody over coffee or in the hallway, on average, you're going to look at each other for about 7 to 10 seconds before one of you looks away. Any longer than that would be a little bit creepy or awkward. So that is not what you want to do in a group environment. But that 7 to 9 seconds is something we don't even think about when we're talking casually with people in person. Now, this is in person. But when you expand then to just one more person that you're speaking to, if you're speaking to 2 or more people, so in other words, a group of people, you want to look at people individually for 3 to 5 seconds. That is what's going to give the optimal connection so that they will feel like you're talking to them, as opposed to what most people do when they're speaking in a meeting or speaking on a stage or anywhere, frankly, where there's more than a few people. It could even be at a dinner party. where we do this eye dart thing. We kind of look around the room, and sometimes we do the head bob, or there's the tennis court. Like, I'm going to look over here, and then I'm going to look over here. We almost feel like we have to scan the audience. And the truth is that is not going to help you to connect. It's think about each person in the room as one individual at a time, that they just happen to be sitting in a room of people. So one person at a time, connect. That's going to help you come across with more confidence. And you certainly, when you do the eye dart or you look up to think, and by the way, I totally get it. There are going to be times when you do that. I do it sometimes too, unintentionally. It's unconscious. And so I'd say with all of these things, keep in mind to follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, do it. And remember that you've got some grace. The 20% of the time, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. But I will say, when someone is darting around the room with their eyes like this, and they're looking up and looking down and all over, it can come across as if they're nervous, they don't know what they're talking about, and it can erode trust. Those are pretty motivating factors to work on your eye contact. All right. Let's see here. Oh, I see some comments here. I absolutely need to work on my eye contact. Yes. Okay. All right, Jeannie, somebody else. Looks like we've got some people that want to come in. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to finish the third bullet, and then we'll bring you in. Okay, the third one is to ask questions. And that is simply, now again, if we're talking about how to build trust quickly, be interested. And of course it's nice to be interesting, but focus on the audience. How can you be interested in other people? And if you probe and ask questions about them, and I know this sounds totally basic, all of this is, but most of us don't do it regularly. That's why we keep talking about it. So making sure that you are asking those questions that show interest in them, because I think about a story from Dale Carnegie. He was at a dinner party, and a woman that he was talking to talked the entire time. And at the end of their conversation, which basically wasn't a conversation, it was essentially a monologue that she was on, she said to him, "Why, Dale, you are the most brilliant conversationalist." And he just went, "Oh, great." So she walked away, and that was that. So I don't want you to be known as that person that is just talking the entire time, because nobody wants to listen to somebody talk the entire time. Although you could argue that you are listening to my monologue now and have been for the past 12 minutes. Oh, Andrew, I love that. I definitely have focus for, oh, that's funny. Yes, I hear you on that. Okay, Jeannie, I'm going to bring you in. Or a comment, so we'll invite her in and see if she is going to come. And while we're waiting for that, oh yes, you are here, Jeannie. I see a beautiful ceiling arrangement.
Oh, I didn't know I was on camera. Sorry.
Oh, did you want to join? Were you trying to join?
I've been listening the whole time, so I don't know.
I wasn't sure if you had a question or a comment that you wanted to come on in.
No, I guess I don't quite understand how this format works, but I've been listening the whole time.
Well, I'm so glad to see you. I will invite Laura in, since she had requested to be in it. Now, this is where I might need my tech folks to tell me, how do I have Laura, how do I have her leave? Not that I don't want you to leave, Laura, but maybe if I bring, or sorry, not Laura, Jeannie, maybe Laura, if I bring.
And my name is Dawn too, also.
Oh, I'm sorry,
no,
Dawn. I'm so
fine.
sorry. Forgive
Everybody,
me.
it's okay. My whole life. It's fine.
Okay, if you can click on there and see if there's a way to leave the video, that would be amazing. I can't figure out how to exit you. So I'm going to keep going. And on this note, let's see here. So Laura, thank you, by the way, Laura, for saying I'm inviting comments, so not a monologue. I appreciate that support. Laura, would you like to join? And if so, I'm going to bring you in as well if you have a question. Let's see. Okay, Looks like I'm not sure and how to do that. This is my ignorance around lives. So welcome to the party. I'm so appreciative. So Laura, I'm not exactly sure how to get you in here. And if anybody has would like to teach me, feel free. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. And just as a reminder, everybody, please remember that it's all about the experience that you create for people. Okay, thanks, Laura. We'll get you next time. But I would welcome anybody coming up to the stage who wants to ask questions, who wants to give their opinion or give their advice on any of these topics. I'll be here every week. And as a reminder, the 3 tips on how to build trust are: smile so you can show your likability, eye contact to show connection, and asking questions so that you can show your interest in others. On that note, have a wonderful rest of your evening, morning, day, whatever time zone you are in. And thanks so much for tuning in to the Confidence Corner. We'll see you next week.